Welcome everyone. Kia ora, waliwana, nindua, and welcome to today's webinar. And today we ask the important question, are you okay? And it's great to have you with us. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mark Henderson. I'm the CEO of AHI. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we collectively meet on today. And I say collectively, we've got registrations right across Australia and New Zealand. We recognise traditional custodians' continuing connection to land, water and community, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. You've seen the poll, hopefully. We've got the poll running, Kel. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Kel. We'll close the poll fairly shortly, and then we might share the results, Kel, so we can see how everyone is at the moment. You'll see in the chat function on Zoom a number of services that you can reach out to. We know some of the conversations we have in discussions like that can trigger things, or people might want to be looking for support services. So you can actually find those in the chat function, and we'll add those to the conversation as we go through today. Today's really important for a whole host of reasons. I can speak very personally. I lost my eldest brother to suicide in '97, and just over 18 months ago, one of my kids was diagnosed bipolar. So this was at a very interesting time in Victoria 18 months ago when we were hitting the first wave of lockdown. For me personally as well, my wife was going through breast cancer treatment at the very same time. So I think of the statement, sometimes life gives you lemons. So we had a few lemons here at our place, but we got through it. We got through it and it was tough, but through the support of the people I work with, family and friends, we've come out the other side and to a degree, much more resilient. But my story, and I hope you don't mind me sharing it, is no different and no more challenging, no more a crisis than anyone else's story. So we are hearing from many of our members that they are really doing it tough. Sometimes we've heard the statement, sometimes making it through the day is a real achievement. To just give you a simple example, and we've noticed particularly recently, say the last 3 to 4 months, when we've been running workshops, people who are due to attend workshops, for instance, on the morning of the workshops, just reach out and get in contact with us and just say, look, we just can't do it. We just can't get there today. We're not in the right headspace and we don't have the energy for it. So today was really important for us to be able to let our members know that we hear them and we want to have this kind of conversation. As you may know, mental health is at a crisis point, and some have said it's a national emergency. Recently, you would have seen the news, Lifeline itself fielded over 3,300 calls in one day, which is a record in the charity's 50+ years of service. We know, alarmingly, that 9 people a day are taking their life by suicide, and we expect that to have risen over the last 18 months through COVID. So it's a really, really challenging time and an important one for us to have this conversation. But we don't lose hope, and that is the key message I take from Are You OK? The other thing I take is that the panel of people you'll meet today and hear from are in the engine room of services to those in the community who are doing it tough. And I'm confident that when you hear and see the quality of these people, that the mountain that is mental health can be conquered. And I have to tell you, these people are incredibly inspiring. So I'm going to introduce you to them now. So first of all, we have Brendan Marr. You'll see Brendan, he's got a fantastic RUOK background. He's the Global Director of Mental Health and Suicide Prevention at the men's charity Movember. And this was news to me, Brendan. Movember is the biggest men's health charity in the world. It's focused on scaling evidence-based programs, both nationally and internationally. Brendan's been with the organisation since 2019, and he's got a team across Melbourne, Toronto, London and Los Angeles, and he knows what it's like to be working across the wire and on screens, clearly. Brendan's also a board member of RUOK and also a former CEO. So Brendan, it's great to have you with us today on this very important day for your organisation. I've got to say, Brendan's was recognised in 2019 by Suicide Prevention Australia. He received a Life Award for Excellence in the leadership category for the work that he does in this space. So, Brendan, welcome from the sunny sunshine of the south coast of New South Wales.
Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate the invite.
Now, Donna Stolzenberg, if you've been to any of our recent workshops and webinars, including our Inspire Summit in June, you would have heard from Donna. And she's had over 18 years experience working in the homelessness support and the not-for-profit sector. She's created some amazing programs. You would know many of them, but I think one of the highlights for me was the sleeping bags for the homeless initiative that Donna proudly developed and delivered on. I regard Donna as a thought leader in the social services space, and she's very much an entrepreneur, and she'll talk through some of the things that she's doing. She's a really inspirational human being, and what I love about Donna, she sees a solution in every problem. So she's the current CEO and MD of National Homeless Collective, and she is the 2021 Victorian Australian of the Year. And Donna, it's great to have you again and your time to share with us and the members at AHI.
Thanks, Mark. As always, it's wonderful to be here.
Now, Claire Bedoya is another panelist. She's not here with us at the moment. She's got a meeting that'll soon finish, but she's the acting manager of crisis accommodation at Launch Housing in Melbourne. Clara is, she's very passionate about leadership. She's got a great interest in high performance teams and the value of healthy and safe work environments. She's got incredible background in and degrees in human rights and in international cooperation, to name but two. Clara was earlier this year a panel member. Actually, Donna, you might remember Clara. She was part of our International Women's Day celebration, and her message of resilience and hope just had an amazing impact on the audience that was with us today. So Clara will be soon to join us very shortly. And last but not least is Derrick Tufffield, and Derrick is the Chief Executive Officer for Lifeline Darling Downs and Southwest, based in Toowoomba, South East Queensland. Now, he's been in the sector for more than 30 years, soon to retire after 20 plus years in the role of CEO in the Southwest. You'll hear from Derrick. He's very, very passionate about regional, rural and remote communities. He sits on numbers of boards at federal, state and local levels, and he's a powerhouse in that part of the world. He's often referred to as the Mayor of Toowoomba. So he's a very important person. He's got an OAM for his contribution to society. Now, I've had the great pleasure of sitting in the car with Derrick, touring around Toowoomba, and him showing me some of the work that Lifeline does in that area. And to be honest with you, I was really amazed at what Lifeline's doing in that area. So Derrick, I want to welcome you and thank you for your time with us today.
Thank you, Mark. It's a real honour to be joining this panel, and particularly on RUOK Day. So thank you very much.
Welcome, thank you. And thanks to all the panelists. Now, for those of you in New South Wales and Victoria, there's been something that we haven't been able to do, and I'm based down in the south of Victoria, something we haven't been able to do for quite a while, and that's get around people and see people and do a bit of networking. What we've been doing in our last few webinars and catch up with our network is just taking a little bit of time at the start of the webinar to do some networking. So we're going to do that now just for a short amount of time. We're just going to go into our breakout rooms. Our panelists are going to join those breakout rooms, small groups, just to say good day to one another, and just to introduce yourselves to one another. And then we're going to bring you back to start the panel conversation. I think while you're there in the room, it's probably worthwhile asking the question about why people are here today, and in fact, are they okay? So, Kel, can I ask you to do the breakout rooms? We're just going to have probably six per room, Kel. Okay, great. So we'll call you back in very shortly. Thanks, Kel. So if you could hit join once you see the breakout rooms come up. What do we think, Kel? Is that everyone back, do you think? 68?
Yeah, Mark, that should be. I think we're all good. Yeah,
We're all good. Okay, well, welcome back. I hope everyone enjoyed that. While you guys were networking, virtual networking, Kelly just informed me we're still taking registrations for today's webinar, which is great. So we've just surpassed 119, I think, Kelly, which is wonderful. People are really keen for this conversation, as we are. Kel, would you mind, for those of you who participated in the poll at the start, if we could throw those poll results up, just we'll have a quick look and then we'll go straight to the panel.
So I've popped them up there. Can someone, I can see Kat from Housing First. Kat, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the results from the poll? Yep, great. So everyone else can see them, Mark, just you can't. Do you want me to read them out?
Please, go for it.
Okay, so we had 50 out of 66 people respond because a few people joined us after we closed the poll. So leading was all the above, as you guys can see there. So 40% of people in the room with us today in our virtual room are saying that they've experienced a bit of a more resilient than ever. It's been a bit of a struggle. They've also surprised themselves and they've developed new perspectives. So a real mixed bag. We had 20% of people saying that they have absolutely developed new perspectives. 18% have said it's a struggle. And we have 12% saying that they're feeling more resilient than ever. And 10% have said that they've surprised themselves. So we didn't actually say whether that was a good or a bad thing, surprising yourself, but probably a bit of a mixture of both.
Yeah, thanks, Kel. And I think that new perspective is probably something that we could all possibly see in our own lives and our communities as well. So that's awesome. Thanks to everyone for your response to that. So let's go to the panel. That's the reason why we're here, to hear from our panel members. Now, if you want to ask a question of our panel, and please do, that's what they're here for. Just type it into the chat function. So I'm sure you're all experts in Zoom nowadays. So questions there. Kelly will capture those and curate them, and we'll get them, put them to the panel members as we go today. I've prepared a few questions, and I hope I don't have to ask all of them. I'll kick the panel conversation off, but I really want to hand over to the audience to get to ask some questions of these awesome people. And Clara too has joined us. So Clara, welcome. We've done an introduction to your good self, and thank you for you being here today. So Brendan Marr, I'm going to throw the first question to you, my friend. Now you've been in the mental health game a long time, a reasonable amount of time. Question to you, what's in your experience, what's changed, what's stayed the same, and how far away do you think as a society and as a community are we to really embracing and solving this challenge of mental health and wellbeing?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Mark. Look, one thing that's definitely stayed the same in this space is that every day is a school day. There's no doubt about that. You know, you're constantly learning, particularly from a global perspective, which, you know, I'm privileged now to work for Movember, so I get a perspective across, you know, many different countries, particularly around, you know, what's working, and levels of stigma and, you know, service levels vary quite significantly from, you know, from an Australian perspective. Look, in terms of mental ill health, suicide, it has found its way to the top of the list. I mean, even pre-COVID, mental health is something that people care about. Workplaces are taking mental health and wellbeing seriously. I've seen kind of an emerging strengthening of evidence on the value of upstream efforts, prevention and early intervention, like RUOK and RUOK Day. Whilst, you know, prevention and early intervention doesn't attract a huge amount of government funding, there's been a growth in the value of what we can do at an informal level to better support one another. I guess if I reflect back on my time at Lifeline, where I was very privileged to work with Derrick, who's just a great man, and I'm so thrilled to see you again, Derrick. I remember 2009 being a really significant year. Lifeline, along with a whole host of other organisations and individuals, were involved in a submission for a parliamentary Senate inquiry into suicide in Australia. And in putting that submission together, we received 129 personal stories over a 5-week period. And like many of my colleagues, I read every single one of them. And most of the submissions were incredibly moving and emotive, and people who had lost loved ones took great care and attention in articulating their story. And they must have been hard to write. They must have been really hard to relive what were profoundly challenging and really sad circumstances. And I remember many of those stories to this day very vividly. And Derrick, I'm sure, probably read these too. And I think our collective efforts and the courage of those people who participated in that inquiry was a turning point, a big turning point for putting suicide prevention on the agenda for government and policymakers in Australia, at least. And the emergence of organisations like Beyond Blue, like RUOK, stronger advocacy and campaigning by Lifeline really started to strengthen the public dialogue about depression, about mental health, and about suicide. So we've come a long way. We've still got a long way to go. 2009 was also a really important year because I received an invitation to attend Parliament House for the launch of a new campaign. And this new campaign was called Are You OK Day. And Gavin Larkin was this Sydney advertising guy who had decided to start this new day to encourage others to ask, are you OK? And it was a simple idea. Gav was a polarising person. The sector were going, who is this bloke? You know, where's this coming from? He's an ad man, doesn't have any evidence. You know, Gav had a huge amount of evidence. His evidence was in his heart and his mind because in 1995, he lost his father, Barry, to suicide. And he'd found it incredibly difficult to explain to his kids why their grandfather wasn't around. And he was tormented all of his life, questioning about what could he have done to have kept his father alive. His father, who isolated himself from others, wouldn't have a bar of anyone. And he regrets not, kicking that door down and going in and saying, Dad, what's going on? So, Gav was successful, and little did I know that at that time that continuing Gav's legacy would end up being a big part of my life. Gav's legacy continues even though cancer ended his life, unfortunately, in 2011. So, yeah, movements like Are You OK, Beyond Blue, we've got people advocating and talking. Mark, you did and that's what helps us to destigmatise and talk about this, is people who are leaders, role modelling that actually, you know what, I'm a leader and I'm not bulletproof either, and I'm going to share the fact that I'm a human being. And that's what we've seen a big change in the last 15 or 20 years. So that was a long answer. So I probably overrun my time. So I hope that that somehow answers the question.
No, it's a great answer, Brendan. Thank you. Just on, we've heard a lot about that thing called stigma, about talking about it or maybe not talking about it. Do we have a ways to go to break the community stigma, or do you think it's now starting to be diluted heavily?
Look, stigma's complex, right? Because there's a whole range of factors. What's your profession? If you're a police officer who is on the front line and you've got a diagnosed mental health challenge, there's really significant impacts on your job and what you can do, and so those kind of things complicate. Those kind of stigmas that genuinely impact your life mean that sometimes people who aren't well, it perhaps doesn't bubble to the surface. That said, first responders and they've come a huge way in acknowledging it's almost accepted as a it's understood and almost a given that if you're on the front line, you're going to have some kind of form of PTSD because of what you're seeing and experiencing every day of the week. So, there's cultural challenges with, depending on what your ethnic background is and religious background, all of those sort of things, contribute to stigma and self-stigma. So but I think we're heading the right way. It's like turning the Titanic. And, you know, the research is telling us, RUOK do a lot of, you know, evaluation. And the research is telling us that the people are starting to feel more comfortable talking about mental ill health. But, you know, it's also a hard one to measure, because that's what's, you know, stigma is a hard one to measure, because, you know, stigma at its deepest level, you know, doesn't give us the answers that we're probably seeking. We're getting there.
Yeah, slowly but surely. No, thank you, Brendan. That was great. Now, Clara, I've got a question for you, but I just want to just reinforce, Clara. You weren't here when I gave your introduction, but I just want you to know that one of the things I made reference to was the impact that you had when you sat on a panel for International Women's Day. Your story and your message had an incredible impact to all those people who were there that day. So I just want to make sure you heard that, because it was very, very impactful. So thank you for being here. Hey, Clara, you said in preparation for today's event, and I'm just going to quote your words exactly, and I'm going to get you to elaborate a bit on it. You said, I believe that all that is missing is a real and genuine conversation for us to create connection and support the well-being of others. It is important to take time to honestly ask and make people feel heard and valued. Do you want to elaborate any more on that? But you put that together beautifully, by the way. But did you want to elaborate on that?
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. Really nice to be here today with all of you. I'm a firm believer that all is missing is a conversation in everything we want to achieve, everything we want to know of others. People really want to feel three things in my eyes: to be seen, to be heard, and to be valued. And the only way we can really do that is by engaging in real conversations. Not those conversations where we just ask, how are you today? People won't give you a real answer. And if they give you a real answer, then you need to be prepared to take the high road and really listen. I think that at the moment with COVID has shown us how important it's really to take the time with others. It's no connection, conversation, community, all those three things that we are talking here today, all can be achieved through conversation, but really to be open and to listen, to understand, not to reply as we do most of the time nowadays. So I guess COVID has been a really challenging time for everyone. I really like the way that Brendan was talking about that idea of stigma and that idea of us as leaders being humans. And I think we all have seen that. Being a leader doesn't mean that we don't have those feelings of uncertainty. We just try to be optimistic for our teams. But I think that days like today, where we talk about how to connect, how to communicate, and how to create community, really give us leaders that opportunity to be humans, to understand that we struggle, and that as much as we ask our teams and those around us, how are you okay, we also need to be asked. I think we need to give us that time to genuinely think about what we need from others and what supports we need. So I guess in summary, for me, all is missing is a conversation, a real one, where we understand the value of others, where we are heard, and where we can create those connections for those that need to belong. I think that through my experience and what I share with you, with many of you in the International Women's Day, is that sense of belonging, how difficult is to get it when you move out of your country of origin, where you're trying to create that community far away, and where you are actually creating your life so far from what you know. And I think to create that belonging, what has helped me through so many years, I left home probably 15, 16 years ago. I moved first to England, then to Australia. And what has helped me to create that connection and that belonging is that sense of community. People really making me feel valued, seen, and heard, and also to give back that. So I think that for me is today, especially in RUOK Day, which I found that is a great initiative. And when I came to Australia and I heard for the first time about RUOK, I was blown away. But actually that idea of conversation, because it's real. We need to have that conversation. We need to be open. We need to hear, see, and value others to create that belonging. And I think that that's what I want to do. That's sort of my aim, really.
Yeah. Now, Clara, apart from you having to deal with Australians and New Zealanders who talk too fast in your time with us, now you're doing a mountain of work with women who found themselves homeless. Can you tell us about the power of conversation in your work with the women that you're working with?
Yes, of course. I think one of the really important things when working with women and any client cohort really that is vulnerable, but also homeless or at risk of homelessness and going through a really hard time, is really to understand what's happening for them. I think we are really quick to judge and to try to help straight away without even listening. So I think that that's what is important, to really connect on that level of understanding, listen to understand, and without, like, we all want to help. But sometimes I wonder, is that we want to help to feel better about ourselves, or is that we really are taking the high road of listen to that person, understanding what their troubles are, because no one thing fit to everyone. So no one solution will fit the issues that we all go through. So I guess there is the power of conversation, but that real one that is difficult, I guess, is being genuine to what you want to do and what you want to understand from others.
Yeah. So seeking to understand before responding as such. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Now, Derrick, I'm going to just ask you, and then Donna, I've got a couple of questions for you, actually, Donna. But Derrick, you're up in Lifeline Darling Downs, have got an amazing array of mental health programs and support services for people in your community. And what struck me as being pretty awesome was the grassroots nature of some of your program delivery, putting people on, for instance, on tractors out in farms, talking to farmers as they work through their day. What's been the secret, or what do you think is the secret to building really high resilience levels in communities like yours and others?
Thanks, Mark. And again, thanks for having me today. Look, firstly, for organisations, being visual is really important, that the community knows that you are there. And I guess one of the benefits I've had as the CEO of Lifeline Darling Downs is that Lifeline nationally has about a 96% rate of being known in the community. So that's a great starting block for us as an organisation. So going forward then, it's about making sure that you do have services that deliver good, strong mental health messages going forward, and that people can trust you. That I think if you're going to put a service out there, people want to know it's going to be a trusted service. It's going to be there for a period of time. It's not going to be there for a short time, and that when they do make contact, that their information will be treated respectfully and with confidentiality. And that also, I think, in the rural sectors, what we've found out is that you can't sit in an office and say, I want the farmer to come in and see me. You've actually got to get out of the office and go and see the farmer. You've got to sit on the back of the tractor, as you said, sit on the back steps of the house, have a cup of tea, and talk through about what are the issues that the farmer may be facing, but also what is the partner, his wife, children facing at the same time. The other thing that is really important is that we have been rolling out a number of mental health services for education for early intervention strategies. So Safe Talk is a really good one to use. We've been having a lot of success with year 11 students at the moment. Why year 11? is that they're going to be the seniors or the grade 12 students next year. How to actually pick up if there are concerns within the schools that someone may be looking to self-harm, then it's a great way then to actually give them the skill set and then take it into year 12. As you know, the other one's accidental counsellor is one that Lifeline's running at the moment. We're having good success with that, with engaging with people in various communities, various government organisations, and really what that's about is, again, and much of what Brendan and Clara have spoken about is about also being able to listen to what's being said and listen intently, and then giving them the skills to how to respond. And that's some of the strategies that we've been using. And can I just say the other part too? I think don't underestimate the value of social media here. Today, you know, the mobile phone is basically the Bible for many people. That's where they're going to go to for their information stream. So you've got to make sure that you've got those messages of mental health support, where to go, how to make contact, and encouraging people to do that. And the phone's a great way to do that.
Yeah. And Derrick, and I might get Kel, if you can, Kel, just put those services in the that are available to us all in the chat, if you may. Derrick, we talked about stigma earlier, and I could probably think of no bigger group to crack, you know, males, rural males on the land, if I could be so generic, you know, to break through that stigma and say, hey, it's okay to talk about how you're feeling. Have you seen those conversations happening more and more with your encouragement and oversight?
I've seen a lot of Lifeline being contacted also by different companies that are working with the farmers on the land, that are actually having those conversations about what's actually going on for them, being really difficult for them and then challenging their staff, and then contacting Lifeline and saying, can you actually deliver services for our staff so we understand how we can engage better with the farmer? We can understand if we are picking up that the farmer's not tracking well, where do we go to provide support for that particular person? Our outreach counsellors, they're actually experiencing that. And often you'll find the conversation will start with the partner and then the farmer, because they're normally up at the crack of dawn, they're out there all day, they're listening to ABC radio, you know, they're coming at night time, they're exhausted, read the paper. So we often will work through the partner and we get engagement that way.
Yeah, brilliant. No, that's fantastic. Thank you, Derrick, for sharing that. Now, Donna, you're supporting some of the most vulnerable people in the community. I wouldn't mind, Donna, if you could start maybe with the story around you starting the sleeping bag for the homeless, and then I've got a question just to follow up on that. Could you share that story? It's a very unique one.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mark. So National Homeless Collective is a charity that I started nearly 7 years ago, and it came about quite by accident, but I did have about, at that stage, about 16 years experience working with people with very complex barriers, basically to life, to moving forward. And a lot of those people were experiencing homelessness, prison release, people with mental health issues, and disabilities, and a few other cohorts as well. And I was working for a large government organisation at the time, and I was at a conference in Sydney, and back then I used to have time to run. I used to go jogging every morning. I don't do that anymore, there's no time. And I was actually having a jog around Darling Harbour, and I came across a gentleman as I rounded a corner. He was asleep on a park bench, but I initially thought that he passed away because it was freezing cold. It was just too cold to be alive out there, and I'd been running for about 10-15 minutes and was still freezing. And so I thought I'd found a body, really, and then I realized that he was asleep. I didn't want to wake him. I didn't know whether he'd been awake for 3 days and finally just fell asleep. I knew that while he was asleep, he didn't know that he was cold. And so I pretty much just left him there and felt completely and utterly helpless, because I was in Sydney. I don't live in Sydney, I live in Melbourne, and I didn't know how to reach out to any organisations or anyone that could help him. And so I came back to Melbourne and I decided to do a collection for sleeping bags for people. I checked in with a few charities to see if they needed them. It was a resounding yes, please, we're desperate. And in 8 weeks, we got 3,500 sleeping bags that went viral on Facebook. And then I came across many other people sleeping rough, and started to learn a lot more about the immediate issues that they had, and then started other sub-charities to support those issues. And now we have 9 across the country that operate, not all in all areas, some are in all areas, and but all of them reach people who are in great need.
Yeah. Thank you, Donna. Thanks for sharing. It's a remarkable story, and it goes to my point earlier in your introduction. You're a real social entrepreneur, finding solutions into sometimes some complex problems. Hey, Donna, you've been in at the heart of lockdown 6.0, I believe, in Melbourne. Now, you've got a team of people that you lead who are delivering services to the most vulnerable people in the community in a very, very challenging time. Question to you, and maybe if you could speak to about your team, but how have you personally got through this period, and how has your teams coped?
I think when I filled out the poll, I was one of the few that I think I've surprised myself. And a lot of that for me personally comes down to my own mental health, and that I have been through circumstance and experience of homelessness myself many years ago. I've been able to really learn how to check in with myself and, ask myself, are you okay, every day, and really listen to that answer. And then when I'm not, I know that I need to call in the troops and get that support, and it's okay to do that. It's been incredibly difficult. Melbourne is in lockdown 6.0, but we came out of the bushfires just before COVID. So we had this collective trauma right through Victoria, and we hadn't even put those fires out before COVID was a thing. And then we were all, I remember the first time we were all begging to be put into lockdown. Lock us down. We didn't know what we were in for at that point. Careful what you wish for. But my team have had to be incredibly dynamic and change with the times. With a grassroots charity like ours, things change in a presser. One press conference and everything changes. For us, it's meant that we no longer have our team of volunteers. We can't have people out there helping us as much as we did before. We can't have people leaving their homes to come and donate items to us, because it's not one of the 5 reasons to leave your house. We often get people saying, hey, if anyone wants food, I can go and deliver it here or take it. Then we have to remind them, actually, you can't. Unless you're with an essential service and you have an essential workers permit, because we have to carry those with us everywhere. And we've also found that there are so many more people who've now come into our cohort of people needing support, and they used to be people who supported us to support people, but with job loss and a lot of people really doing it tough out there, we've needed to support a lot more people. There's a lot of fear around what will happen once we're out of this. There's fear around things, people we're supporting. Can I feed my child today? And it's not just a matter of finances, it's can I access that food? I'm in a tower that's tier 1, no. And I can't get nappies, I can't get formula. And indeed, one of the reasons that I was awarded Victorian of the Year for 2021 was the work we did with the towers last year. We know that with crisis management, it does tend to be very largely male dominated, but infant care, the mental load of infant care does usually fall to the women, to the mothers, and there are certain things that are often left out that we had to be very mindful of, and that's where a charity has really been able to support people. Our team is a lot smaller now than what it usually is. We have around about 400 volunteers, but the work that we do has scaled right back. There are no more festivals to raise money. There's no more community barbecues because we can't have gatherings. We've had to rely on our supporters supporting us financially rather than tangible goods. So everything's been different, but I'm very pleased to say that everyone has adapted, you know, beautifully, that I can tell. And, you know, there's obviously an undercurrent of fear with everybody, and that worry about, you know, how long can we sustain this? We're not a funded organisation. We don't have any government funding at all, but we managed to get things done. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's inspirational, Donna. Thank you. Brendan, can I just shift to you? Just the question around, particularly like last 18 months, and you've got a distributed workforce that you're looking after across international boundaries, etc. So remote working is, you know, part of your day to day, and maybe your night to night and your weekends as well, trying to manage those distributed workforce. But how have you seen the kind of shift, the digital shift that we're seeing in our work environment, and that's impact on connection, mental health, and the like?
Yeah, look, you're right in that it wasn't a difficult transition for Movember, because, you know, we were used to engaging with each other in a Zoom environment anyway. Look, it's been challenging from a cultural perspective. You know, whilst we are geographically dispersed, you know, generally you've got, you know, 2 or 3 opportunities over the course of a year to catch up face to face with, you know, with your team members. When Victoria were in lockdown for that extended period last year, I actually went down to Melbourne at the first opportunity. It had been many months for our Christmas party, believe it or not. And it was in a pub in Melbourne, and it was like I met everyone again. You know, because everyone looked, it was reacquainting yourself to this, you know, this physical presence. Look, what we have tended to do from a wellbeing perspective is really genuinely acknowledge the and reinforce the access that staff have to things like, you know, mental health days. We encourage at a leadership level to be visible on this stuff. Like if you're trying to model good behaviours around well-being, some great advice I got was that you need to be able to film it if you really want to model it to your team. So if I'm overwhelmed as a leader, which absolutely happens, I let my team know, look, I'm having a doona day. I'm having a mental health day today because I need to recharge and recover. I'm going to go and make an appointment with my EAP, and in the same way that that you were transparent at the front of this, Mark, I think reinforcing that and acknowledging and being genuine about modelling the kind of behaviours that you need to. It's all very well to be saying, oh yeah, we care about mental health, and you know, keeping the facade up all day long, because if you can't see it in your leaders, I think it's really hard to, you know, to genuinely embrace the permission to be vulnerable and to look after oneself as a colleague. And I've seen that all the way across RUOK as well. I remember going to present to a bank when I was CEO of RUOK, and I won't say which bank. Actually, it wasn't Commonwealth. But I had it wasn't Commonwealth, by the way, and I won't say who, because it's not fair. And I met with this senior leader, and he wanted me to talk to a bunch of senior bankers about how to look after one another, because the Royal Commission was on, and banking was a really tough industry. And so he introduced me as, you know, this is Brendan from RUOK. He's going to talk to us about how to support each other. Really important that we do. It's a tough time, and it said all the right things. I presented for about half an hour, and then I stayed for a cup of tea afterwards, morning tea. And this guy came up to me and he said, Brendan, your preso was really good. I got a lot out of it. Thank you. He said, the problem with your presentation wasn't with you. It was the person who introduced you. That person is the biggest head kicker in this organisation. So, and it really kind of reframed the need for us to, if you're going to embrace movements like RUOK, don't do it as a balloon and cupcake day. Embrace it with consistent behaviour 365 days of the year. And yeah, we'd rather not. We'd rather organisations didn't get involved just for one day of the year. I mean, look, there's value in it, of course, as a reminder, as a chance to point to resources. But and we have an RUOK day, so obviously it's an opportunity for people to get involved. But it's a national reminder. It's not let's just do it for one day and then go back to ourselves. So culture, leadership, visible behaviours around how we model wellbeing. Would be my absolute piece of advice to anyone who wants to, really build a culture of authentically caring about one another.
Yeah, absolutely. Brendan, cheekily, we might run a poll later just to guess which bank it was, but no, we won't. That was a joke. Now, Brendan, in a real seriousness, I mean, if what would your advice be to someone who's sitting inside an organisation with the person you described at the bank, the head kicker who doesn't believe in it, it's a tick the box exercise and move on once the day's over? I mean, what do you do as a person within that institution?
Here we go. Sorry, Mark, we lost you there for just a couple of seconds. You want to start the question again?
Yeah, sorry. Down here in Geelong, massive winds. I can hear them outside, so the connection's getting unstable. No, I was just saying, Brendan, what do people do if they're working inside an organisation where the leadership doesn't mirror those really important behaviours?
Find a leader who does, and put your time and effort and energy into those people. I mean, leadership can come from a whole load. It doesn't have to be the boss. I mean, we all know that the most influential person in an organisation can be someone in middle management or someone on the front desk. So find someone who can be believed and who's authentic, and don't give up on that person. But maybe as they start to see the benefits and the appetite for team and genuinely improve performance and improve relationships with each other, attitudes might start to shift over time. Yeah, that would be my advice.
Yeah, no, brilliant, Brendan. Now, Clara, just to you, what's working inside your workplace around mental health and mental wellbeing? Can you share anything that you guys are doing at launch that's making a difference?
Yes, definitely. So currently I'm acting as the crisis accommodations manager. So I'm looking after 4 crisis accommodations at the moment with different client cohorts, families, children, women, singles, couples, male. So it's quite a range of different client cohort, but also a lot of staff. So at the moment, and we are also working in the sites. We are not working from home. We have every now and then a few days to do admin work from home, but most of us are working from the sites. And it has been a quite risk environment over the last couple of months. So to keep the mental health and well-being of our staff and residents, we have put in place well-being action plans, making sure that there is check-ins every day from leaders with the teams, that we keep people updated in what's going on, but making sure that we don't overwhelm people with information, which I think that is a really good thing, rather than to send so many emails about lockdowns, actions, what needs to happen, just one email for everyone to make sure that there is a lot of information. The other part is about making sure that every week there is a day for staff to be able to have lunch together, making sure that there is coffee runs every now and then, which work really well. But also as an organization, I think our CEO has been really good in making connection with all staff, making sure that people is taking well-being. I know it's a big thing at the moment where so many organizations are getting extra well-being days, but people are not taking them, which is another conversation, because people really don't feel that they should be taking time off, especially when you are working in the crisis sites. You want to be there to support others. So making sure that our staff really take time off. And I guess the other part is to make sure that we value the work that people do, and we recognize and provide that recognition to people every day in a very informal way. So it's many different ways to I guess to provide that well-being, but also through leadership, making sure that our leaders are keeping safe as well, so that they can actually support their teams.
So, Clara, that sounds like some pretty simple kind of effort there to really help promote good, healthy well-being for the staff. You know, a coffee run, simple communication. Is that the essence of it?
Yes, exactly. I think as a leader, one of the things that I try to provide to my other leaders who are leading our leaders is to make sure that things are simple. I guess the simple we communicate, the more we use a language, that we share a language, that we share our values, that we share practices in a very simple way, the more people connect with it. I think the days are gone to those leadership I guess styles where the boss is there just saying you need to do this and not acknowledging what people value the most, which is simplicity and really to be able to be informed in a really nice, natural way.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Clara. And there's just a comment come through, Derrick. I might talk around this. Renee has said in the chat, I love the idea that leaders also need to be asked if they are okay. Now, you've been a leader for a long time, 24 years, Derrick, as CEO of Lifeline. 21, even though you're only in your early 30s, you've been there 21 years as a CEO. Just as a very, I suppose, prominent person in your community, have you found people come to you and say, Derrick, are you okay, mate?
Not too often. Probably more my own staff, my executive management team. I think they've probably been more prominent. My GP, I guess, you know, for me, and men aren't really normally good at our own personal health, but for me, I have 3 monthly checkups. So I think I've been pretty regimental about that for a number of years now. But it is more the executive team. My wife, obviously, or she'll pick up on, if I'm not tracking well, she'll pick up on it fairly quickly and bring it to my attention. And I guess for ourselves, for all of us, you know, I remember asking my doctor one time, I said to my GP, how do you know you're stressed? How do you know when you're not coping? And he went, oh, well, straight away, what I do when I get in the car every morning, if I don't turn on ABC radio, he said, I know I'm stressed. And that was his indicator that things weren't going well for him. And I thought, well, that's right. We all kind of know ourselves when our stress levels are being pushed and we're not coping, and that we need to do something about it. And I guess within Lifeline, from my early days, the term self-care has been a really prominent term that we've said about what is your self-care? Are you taking self-care? Because if the CEO falls over, often a number of the deck chairs will fall over with that as well, and that's not a good thing. So as Clara said, you got to keep on top of it, and you got to make sure that, and if you're not well, then pass the mantle to someone who is, so that your organisation remains strong and firm.
Yeah. And is there been anything that you've done inside your organisation, Derrick, that has surprised you at how effective it's been in making or supporting people who's doing it tough?
Yeah, look, and again, some of this has been touched on by the other panel members, but one of the ones that I didn't at first think would have a major impact on my staff, but it was the fact that I put out a weekly newsletter on Friday, and it was just a simple 2-page newsletter looking at the different departments, looking about maybe some of the small successes that we had, different movements, and then I learned about attaching nice photos and snapshots, and then I started to get feedback. But it was also initially about, it started with COVID, like what's COVID happening, how's it affecting us, how's it affecting our staff. But it became a tool that staff looked forward to reading each week, because it was simple, it didn't take long to do, kept them connected. And I've got staff that are operating, you know, out at Cunnamulla and Charleville and St George and Roma and Dalby and Warwick and Stanthorpe. They're that sense of being connected is really important. The other thing we did was online morning teas. We would have a virtual morning tea every Wednesday. So we'd all get our cups of tea, go into the conference room, the staff that were here at work, and you'd have 50 or 60 people on a virtual morning tea. I find for myself, I like to bring bun loaf, although you've got some. You've got to be careful of gluten-free and different things, but bring a cake or cream buns. Rodney Watton's online. He likes the cream buns I like to bring to work. Some of those unexpected small things go a long way, but also reminding people celebrate the small successes.
Yeah,
really do celebrate them. When everything else is looking clouded and uncomfortable, sometimes there's those small things, and it really does pick your spirits up, and I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you. Donna, there's a lovely comment there from Sarah in the chat. You'll be able to see that, but talking about being aware or making it real. And I think, Brendan, you've talked about this as well. The leader needs to be able to put their hand up and say, look, I'm not traveling well for a whole host of reasons. Have you found that in your organisation where people have been able to put their hand up and go, you know what, I'm not traveling that well?
Yeah, look, definitely. And we have very open and honest conversations about that. We largely employ people who have come through that gauntlet of homelessness or prison release, or have had significant other barriers. Sorry, I'm on a flimsy desk and I keep knocking it. So we've had we're very focused on the mental health of our employees and indeed our volunteers. Volunteers can step back a little bit easier than employees, but as I was mentioning in the pre-chat, we have a policy where people have no start and finish times to their work. So if they are overwhelmed and need to leave, they have all they need to do is just tell me that they're leaving, or if they can't come in. But we also don't let them isolate either. If someone says they're not coming in, I will say to them, that's fine, but is there anything you want to talk about? Is there anything we can help you with? Do you want to have a chat? I try and make sure to catch up for coffee with people individually. I have separate chats with people so that they can check in and let me know how they're going. And a lot of that is, the people that we're employing, our volunteers, but also the people that we look after as well, the people that we're supporting until they can connect to and reach those services. And one of the things that I really want to speak to there, I did a summit yesterday with Andy Penn, who's the CEO of Telstra, and we talked about the topic of digital inclusivity in Australia, and there is quite a digital divide and exclusion for people who are experiencing homelessness. And a lot of people have mobiles, but they are the most expensive way to access the internet. People who don't have that Wi-Fi at home or broadband tend to spend more money, and thus they are a bit more excluded from that contact and that connection. And as Clara was saying earlier, we all have this need to be needed. We need to be valued. We need to belong somewhere. And that's actually a primal need that goes right back. Studies show us it goes right back to when we were living, in caves with our tribes. As soon as you weren't needed, you were ousted and became bear food because you were a liability. And we carry that with us today. And unfortunately, technology has caught up and moved so far ahead that human beings are not catching up with that. We're very fortunate that we can catch up with technology and as we are today, so we can still see faces, but it's very important to remember that people still need the actual human face and that human touch. And unfortunately, COVID has removed that from us as well. We can't touch and hug people like we could before.
Yeah, and let's just touch on that, because Kat from Housing First in Victoria makes a really pertinent comment around that, Donna. I think, at the start of this COVID pandemic, I suppose we attacked it with enthusiasm because we were hopeful that it was not going to last maybe as long as it has. And I think probably a lot of leaders have run out of puff a little bit, and maybe a lot of people within organisations have run out of puff a little bit. Do you get a sense that, you know, you talk about Andy Penn at Telstra, that there is a little bit of burnout at the leadership level, maybe looking for some direction and some hope somewhere else, perhaps?
I can't speak for someone who's as sort of high up in the leadership level as Andy is, but I know that he has been incredibly proactive to make sure that his staff are okay. For example, the staff at Telstra, if they're not in a customer contact role, have been basically told that they need to take the Monday off before Melbourne Cup Day, so they get a 4-day long weekend, and the Monday off before one of the other public holidays, or the Friday, I think, so that they get a 4-day weekend. But then they're getting that back. They can then just take 2 other days off without question, and it's not going to affect their annual leave. So he's been very proactive in making sure that staff are okay, that staff are taking time away from the workplace as well. I know that with leadership within those very COVID affected areas like Victoria and in particularly Melbourne, we had no idea how long this would last for, and we are running out of steam, and we're running out of ideas. I think now for us it's a day-by-day basis. We've shifted. One of the things that we always really should have done is to look at the solution and not the problem. We spent so much time looking at the problem of COVID, of cases, of infectivity, and not actually looking at the solutions, and we're changing that now. So rather than watching the cases just climb, we're now looking at the rates of vaccination climb and talking about Freedom Day and what we can do. And I think it's really important to focus that there will be a time when this does end, and we all just have to hang in there together, stay in touch, check in with people every day. I've got 2 very close friends who are actually on suicide watch at the moment, and unfortunately lost someone last week to suicide. And it's really important to know that everybody is feeling the effects of this. You can speak up about it if you're not okay. It's important to remember that people are there for you, and I think sometimes if you're a leader it's harder to. I often feel that if I take a day off, my entire charity is just going to fall, because I am at the helm. I built this, and it's very hard to hand it over to someone else. So I don't take holidays, and I have to. So I have to be very aware of my own needs and my own mental health, and I am recognizing that now with this long lockdown that we've had. And I would really encourage other people in leadership roles too. You have a right to step down and take some time off, and the world will not implode if you do. Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, we're just we're nearly to time, but can I just ask, just pose the very last question, Brendan, just to you, just on what we've just been hearing about workforces, people running out of puff, particularly those of, as Donna has just said, around, you know, Melbourne, Victoria, New South Wales now. What do leaders do for those people?
For people who are running out of puff? Yeah,
running out of puff. They've had enough. They've had enough of this COVID thing, and they're, you know, really working hard to get through it.
Well, look, there's probably been a great example in our very organisation. Globally, as of this afternoon, everyone's been told to recharge, and they've got Friday and Monday off. It happened very quickly, because there's an acknowledgement that that staff are finding it really tough. So they're giving our staff a couple of days to kind of recover and recharge, I suppose we're calling it. That's one thing. Look, you know, we don't always have that luxury, depending on the type of work that we do, but it's a hard one. Burnout's a really, really hard one, particularly when, you know, your messages of, you know, things are going to get better. We'll be back soon, and then, you know, it's a big public health policy that, you know, puts us right back in to where we don't want to be. Yeah. Just, you know, on this day of all days, I would just reinforce, you know, for leaders, if you look at you know, engagement and employee satisfaction, and being in a place that you want to be, healthy, happy people come to work. Take an interest in your people personally. Ask them how they're going. Find out about them, and, you know, that very action will mean that you've got, you know, someone who knows that you actually genuinely care about them. And it takes discipline. It's not easy. We've got to be disciplined as leaders, because those gaps can get bigger and bigger and bigger with our people if we're not. if we're not, we don't even diarise it. I mean, it sounds, it sounds very technical in approach, but yeah, I just think the benefits can be profound if we lean in to our people, and that can be hard when we're struggling ourselves, but the benefits can be profound.
Yeah, no, fantastic. No, thank you, Brendan. Appreciate that very much. Well, we're now close to time. So I want to thank our panelists, Derrick, Donna, Clara and Brendan, for your time today. You guys collectively and singularly are unique human beings who are doing some amazing work to help people like us manage our own personal health, our mental health, and that of our workforce and our colleagues. So thank you from everyone here at the AHI and all the people on the call today for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I'm
just proving a lot of people wrong. I can do two things at once. So there's a link to the RUOK website, which you can donate. You may have seen in the correspondence we sent out earlier around doing this today. AHI is going to donate $1,000 towards RUOK. We'll do that today. Our $1,000 is not a lot of money, but I think if we put it in the context of maybe Telstra, Donna, it's probably worth about $10 million. So we really want to put our hand in our pocket and make a contribution because it's important. So I would encourage you to do that the same. Kel's just put in the webinar, in the chat, sorry, the webinar recording will be available soon post today. So I just want to thank you guys, our panel. Thanks to everyone who's on the call today. Make sure you're okay. Reach out if you're not. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your week. And hopefully Freedom Day, as you called it, Donna, happens soon for those people in particularly Victoria and New South Wales. So again, thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Kel. Thanks, Dom.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Laura.